Welcome to a special episode of the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by TrainerRoad. We're with our CEO, Nate Pearson, and today we are going to go over the questions that all of you have about TrainerRoad AI. It's recently launched, and this is a cool opportunity where we just get to go straight into this. And Nate, you're not like a disconnected CEO from the product in this case. You've been very much you've been in the trenches with the team.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, you know firsthand on this stuff. Let's just jump into the questions. This first one, and I have actually maybe some context for how these questions came about. This is from us actually scraping and polling and getting overall sentiment and specific examples of questions from the internet that people are asking about it. So it's all the questions. That's right. So these are questions that athletes have been asking that have been using it. Nate, first one. We described this in the launch podcast, but we're probably going to have to keep describing this over time. The question is very basic. How are we actually using AI?
Yeah, so we are using a machine learning model that we developed ourselves. And the simple way to describe that is we fed into this machine tens of millions of TrainerRoad workouts, hundreds of millions of outdoor rides. And we had it learn the relationship between if this happens, how well do you perform on this? Also metrics like yourself, your heart rate, the power, like I said, your age, your gender, stuff like that, when they were in the week and the whole month and everything like that. And we can use that then to predict how you're going to do on any certain day on any certain workout. And then we can use that then to pick what is the best workout for you at any certain day and any certain workout. And that system can also be used, we'll talk about in a second, that we backtrack that to estimate FTP for you. But that's the basis of it. What it's not is it's not a LLM. So LLM is the large language model, and that's what's been popular recently with ChatGPT. And that actually uses a machine learning model underneath of it. But it's a way to chat and interact with it. And we don't have that right now. I would like to have a AI coach in the future that is connects to TrainerRoad and kind of ask our internal systems through an MCP server, which is just a way, it's an APIs that a list of APIs that an LM can talk to kind of answer some of these questions that people are asking us. They could ask it directly. But what an LM like OpenAI does for ChatGPT, they don't have access to the data that we have, the point-by-point data, and therefore it can't do what we're doing. And even if they had that data, I highly doubt that they would train the model to do this. And that's why there's so many AI specialized models in the world, like one for curing cancer, for a certain type of cancer, or doing genome stuff. They don't use an LLM to do that. They write specific use case AIs to do that. They might have the LLM like Claude help them code it, but the itself, you don't it's not the kind of thing, especially with the context window of being 200K tokens, which just basically means how much you can feed into it. We have, 40 terabytes we're feeding into it, which is not, you know what I mean? That's a lot more than is possible in a context window with LLM for it to learn those sorts of things. So it's just it's a different approach. It's so if you think hey, why don't I get an AI where I can say, I wanted to say what's coming up next week? How did I do last? To tell you those other things. Taking vacation, mark this week as vacation. What can I do to progress faster? Stuff like that. That's what I want to build into it. But this is the core system, and a LLM would just query that system and answer those questions for you. Sometimes things that employees do in the forum or in support or something like that, I think we could leverage it. But that's kind of the difference of what we do. And I think what you've seen sometimes, not even name anyone specific, but other people use LLMs to kind of build things, and sometimes it can go off the rails. For instance, I had a recipe. I was making a Cuban picadillo, and I use TikTok recipes, but then I use an Instacart integration in ChatGPT, and I just trusted it. I was like, "Get me the stuff." Oh man, it did not make me a Cuban picadillo. It was missed. I forget what it did, but I think I didn't have cumin or something, and I was like, "Oh no!" And it was close, but it wasn't there. And this is where you kind of get that AI slop thing where you can get something close, but it's not there. And that's not what we're doing with us. Like there's no AI slop in this. It's predicting one specific or predicting many different workouts, and then we're choosing inside of that. Um, it doesn't kind of, I think you've seen some probably, I don't know, John, you've seen some reviews of other things and it even and all sorts of things,
Yes.
try to write a book and it doesn't write a book well, but it does certain tasks very, very well.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess that's enough to say about that.
Yeah, they're trying to, if I can add on maybe more layman's perspective, Nate's was a really good explanation, but that they're like, OpenAI, Anthropic, all these other companies are trying to solve really big problems, right? Like really large market problems. And, there's a lot of cyclists in the world, but there's, them getting the right workout at the right time is probably ranks low against like curing cancer, like relatively speaking. So they're probably not going to invest a lot of money and resources into developing for that. And as a result, like this customized approach, I think it's been Kleenexed maybe. Like, how Kleenex is like tissues, but we all just say, hand me a Kleenex. And that's what has happened there. And I think in some respects, we've Kleenexed AI through the lens of LLMs. Like, we just think that like AI is a chatbot that I can talk to. But in reality, it's a really cool technology that can help us solve complex problems that are really tough for us humans or basic algorithms to solve.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The
And we'll probably see big like this will become more common as time goes on, and like there will be custom bespoke AI development to solve unique cool problems like this. So
yeah, the so Anthropic and OpenAI and Google and stuff and Facebook, they're all trying to do what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence. And that's really interesting is that means that it is, as smart or smarter than a human, whatever that means, because it's kind of like there's different humans. And I think in certain cases, it's definitely smarter than a human, but in other cases, it's not. And the interesting part too, this is like a side note, but when AGI comes, it's like, is this huge national security thing? Because so if you have something that is as smart as a human, but you can either scale it out 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times in parallel, or speed it up so that it thinks really fast, faster than a human. Like technologically, against like one country against another country, you could get, tens, hundreds, or thousands of years in front of another country
yeah,
in months. And the preemptive strikes and stuff that could happen of that it's just really scary to think about that. And they're putting, data centers. I'm sure they're thinking of this in, different places. And that's why like, Ohio is a big one. It's like very far inside the country, rather than put it all in,
mhm,
like Silicon Valley, like on the coast and things. But that's the scary part. But I think we are going to get there, and at least in some sort of way, or, even specialized stuff. As far as coding goes with Claude, it's working with an engineer. You are 10 times, if not more, better than it, but it can't work on its own yet. It can for a while, but it has to be checked by a human. We have the way like different Claude systems checking itself. Um, so if they achieve that, and there does have that AGI, there could be a point where you go, hey, make me TrainerRoad, and it makes TrainerRoad for you. And then it builds the ML
yeah,
models like specialized software, and then look at your software. You'd have to have all the data for everything. But maybe just yourself looks at that and then builds a whole software for that. Maybe it builds you, Zwift. Say, build me Zwift. I want it to be on Mars though, and it could do that for you. That I think is
mhm.
a definitely a realm of possibility in the future. And if that happens, like, we're all out of jobs. There's nothing safe. We need some kind of universal basic income or something, because it's going to be, if you could just replace anything all the time. But that's how that would work, is that the LLM would help you, would be like a really smart person in order to build a system to do it rather than it do it itself.
Yeah. I want to recap some of the key points that we've made here. Is like number one, the data in terms of like all the data that we have, and we have what is effectively unlimited tokens. It costs a lot. It's not like it's free for TrainerRoad, but we have like unlimited tokens, whereas LLMs would be limited. So you could say like, here's my entire training history, but it's not going to analyze all that because it's not going to store tick by tick what all the data is. That would be inefficient for it. We have all that data. We have all of your data, and then we can actually analyze all of it. So that's like a unique thing. There's also no system, or I shouldn't say there's no, I don't want to be presumptuous, but this is all built like designed with constraints and systems of checks and balances. Whereas if you just rely on an LLM, it's really hard to tell what system of checks and balances, if there is any, that's in place there. So it might take you off the rails and into the realm of AI slop. Even without you realizing it, it might just have you doing like subpar workouts. And those subpar workouts might just pose an opportunity cost that you never really recognize. You think you're getting faster, but you could be way faster if you were just getting actually something that had those guardrails to make sure you were in the right spot. So, yeah, big difference there. Let's talk about the next questions, and the set of questions is all about FTP.
Mhm.
And Nate, we mentioned this in the previous podcast, but it bears mentioning again. The question is, how does TrainerRoad AI use FTP? It's a bit of a trick question.
I think I'll be answering this for years. So the AI does not know the concept of FTP. It knows watts, duration, heart rate, and that is enough for it to figure out what you can do, what's the best workout, like for you to proceed, and like what you can achieve. And then what we do is we take a set of benchmark workouts. We predict what FTP you could do those at, and that then inserts you at around a level 3 threshold workout on TrainerRoad to start your progression to increase from there. And that we think is a good spot to get people faster, because or else you start getting into like instantly got to start doing 90-minute sweet spot workouts, because there's only so long of sweet spot you could do in an hour. And we will progress you forward as that happens. And even if you're in a specialty phase, we won't change your FTP in the middle of it, so that you can kind of either extend your durability, repeatability, or your endurance time at that same wattage, which is good to do at the end. I don't think at the beginning. Talked about before, it's much better to raise your FTP than to really work at a high percentage of FTP if you're not at a very, very high level. Even the pros, though, they don't. Well, I don't want to get into that, because that's a whole can of worms to do this. But anyways, that's in general, that's probably what it is, especially for the majority of people. If you go to power to weight calculator on the internet, you'll see a little graph, and you can put your power to weight in, and you can see where you rank in the percentile of trainer athletes. If you're in the 98th, 99th, maybe it is good to be in the, do some higher percentage of threshold to work on that for a longer event, depending on your event. It really depends, which you will actually work on in plans. But if you're lower, 3 watts per kilo or something, like you got a lot of headroom, depending on your age, to go up and get faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is probably like a good point to talk about the concept of FTP maybe, and help people kind of like understand what we're looking at here. It's interesting because the name is functional threshold power, but I feel like we just ignore the word functional like far too often.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that it is your hour power, or it is 95% of what you can do for 20 minutes, or it's 90% of what you did for 2 by 8 minutes, or it's your maximal lactate steady state, or we try to make it very, very specific, when in reality, the definition is even in the name. It's meant to be a functional training benchmark to calibrate and give you the right workouts. There's, Nate, we're looking at the same thing here. There's like the 7 deadly sins of finding your FTP and this is from Dr. Andy Coggan back in 2008. For those that don't know, Dr. Coggan was one of the pioneers in really like power-based training with cycling.
Yeah, he came up with FTP and TSS
the OG
and normalized power.
Yep.
Yeah, our stuff pretty much is based off of him in the book Racing Training with the Power Meter. And I think it's Alex, I forget his name, wrote that blog post about 7 deadly sins, but it's based on what Andrew Coggan said. So a little nuance there.
Thanks, Nate. Yeah.
And two, when you think about it, and I think it was like 2002, he first coined the term FTP. And back then, power meters, it was like SRM, right? That was like $2,000. It was crazy. Back in it was really hard to people were training by heart rate and stuff, but he developed a system where you could do some kind of test, or we're going to go through ways to figure out, this is in 2008 when they knew more, but back then, to try to figure out a benchmark, and then you could use percentages of that and different interval lengths to get faster. And that compared to the old way of go hard up these hills, right? Or you got to do this, just do this many miles and you're going to be great. or even the bravest heart rate training, it was a huge, gigantic advantage. And that's how this whole like industry, that's why people have power meters now, because, I think a lot from this guy and being able to do that, of making this tool very, very useful. And it didn't require you to have an AI or to be like a high level coach in order to like kind of figure this stuff out. You could read the book, you could figure it out and do it. And then I think what happened next, everyone goes, well, what is FTP? But what does it mean? And even him himself, he said a couple different things. And you want to take it from here?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, and I think that maybe the lens of like, what is FTP was always colored by how we found out our FTP, how we discovered what it was, like the testing method.
Yeah, when you first figured out. Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Yeah. So he talks like this 7 deadly sins thing. Basically, this talks about like the different ways that you can find your FTP. This is in 2008. So just noted that that's from then, but this is like in order from like the least accurate up to the most accurate, or maybe accurate is the wrong term. I might be misusing that one, but the one that's maybe most reliable in finding that. The first one is from inspection of a ride file. Like you can go through there and you can try to figure it out from just looking at a ride file. Next one from power distribution profile for multiple rides. So that's like looking at basically like where your power sits for key durations and looking at that over multiple rides. Then from blood lactate measurements. And this one's interesting because it says like for better or worse, depending on how it's done. And I just want to touch on this one because this is because of training and really largely it's like everything that Olaf, Alexander Boo, and Christian Blumenfeld and all these, they really drove a lot of their training by lactate, and it kind of was preached as if like this completely replaces the concept of FTP, but there's a lot of issues on the blood lactate side of things in particular. Number one, that FTP was never meant to be your exact maximal lactate steady state or that inflection point where you're at that. It's a functional training benchmark like we talked about to adjust intensity in your training. But the other side of it too is that I think that the reason why it says better or worse, depending on how it's done in parentheses there from this article, is because it's not like perfect. There's this like theoretical thing that it's like, if we measure blood, it's perfect and it's exactly what it needs to be. But it's number one, that it's tough to actually measure it depending on the protocol of what you're doing. It has to be consistent in order to get consistent comparable data. Number two, on top of that too, like nutrition and different things actually wildly can, or I shouldn't say wildly, but can affect your readings, your blood lactate readings as well. These are all like things that affect it. So I assume that's why that's down there, because somebody listening to this that thinks it's the true north of all true norths is probably going to be upset that it's only in like the third to last position.
Yeah,
so
some people have crazy lactate levels, John.
Yes, some people.
Yeah, so John,
like myself, it's still crazy.
Yeah, yours is like in the 12 or 14 or something, right? Or
Yeah,
was it 18?
so I'm at like my peak was 18, but then I've tested right around what FTP is and where that inflection point is, where it goes up, and I've been anywhere from 8 to 12 depending on different times across the years of cycling that I've done. And we've done testing. This is not meant to be a study, but we've even done testing. There's a video on this that we have on our YouTube channel where we talk about like a blood lactate measurement to be able to test the effectiveness of sodium bicarbonate. And we looked at that. We did that internally with athletes at TrainerRoad, with 4 additional athletes to myself. And we did 3 different tests with each one, went through the whole thing. And as long as you're getting like, you have somebody that's good at measuring, you can, and then as long as you're using the same protocol, you can kind of get close to comparing, but it's still surprising how much variance there is within it. So anyways, that's why that one's there. Better than that one ranked is based on normalized power from a hard 1-hour race. Then step up from that one using critical power testing and analysis. Then up from there from the power that you can routinely generate during long intervals done in training. So this one might seem, remember, this is the second best one that is in this list from 2008 from Dr. Andy Coggan. Then the last one here from the average power during a roughly 1 hour TT, with in parentheses, the best predictor of performance is performance itself. So somewhere along the lines, as we're wont to do, we've attached our own definitions. And when I say us, I mean people in general have attached their own definitions to what FTP is. Maybe it's through the testing format that you did or what you're trying to get at. We usually think that our, like everybody else's definition of FTP is wrong if their FTP is higher than mine. It's like the general rule that everybody seems to operate on. But what this shows us here is that looking at actual performance and then using that to figure out what your FTP is is from this one, from the person that invented FTP, and this is an article written about this, of course, but it ranks higher than what you might expect from other formats. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and the last one too, the average hour 1 hour time trial. The only thing hard about that is that you have to go all out in this method, which is extremely hard to do. You got to be motivated. I think Cogman once said like gun to your head kind of motivation. And the other one is you have to pace correctly. And I've always had a problem with this because if you don't know your FTP, you don't pace correctly. Because in order to pace correctly, it's like, I think he recommends a 49-51 split where you're slightly higher the second time. In order to do that, you have to know your FTP. Like you can't, so it's like, that's really hard to do. And
also not even if you did know your FTP, there's no guarantee that you can actually do it. There's a lot that goes into executing that effort, not just knowing what your FTP is, but being able to execute. I know very, very, very few cyclists that I feel like could go out and execute at that sort of level and ride at what their FTP is for an hour.
Yeah. And especially like just go around and ask you what their FTP is and they say, go ride with that for an hour. Like, I don't think I've ever met somebody who actually does and then what happened too. So there's that, this is 18 years old. We found out too that, your relationship originally, they might say VO2 max workouts at 120% of FTP, but for certain people, where you are to your VO2 max ceiling of like how high you can go, that percentage is different. And then also for your long rides, like what percentage of like how close to threshold are those? That also changes based on how well you've trained. And so these are like all moving targets inside of that. And your anaerobic power, which is, we might see 150% of FTP, but that is really muscular dependent and athlete individualized, like Pete Morris versus, I was actually pretty good at anaerobic. But just my anaerobic was actually not as high, but a little more sustained than other people.
Your 1 minute power.
Yeah. And not even high as some people, but like Pete was like very high, repeatable at a very high wattage. And that would all be different percentages too. And then somebody might be naturally better at endurance or be, based on their diet, being in ketosis, they might have the highest FTP, but they've really operated a high percentage of that over time. That's another way they could do it. So again, this is 2002 first did it, revolutionary. We've learned stuff from that since then. And we've created other systems and ways to like figure it out. And we released the progression levels many years ago. I don't remember the exact year, but that like disconnected. So you could like have your level of anaerobic versus FTP versus endurance, and that kind of disconnected everything. And to be more individualized towards you. Now with the new AI, it doesn't know about levels, doesn't know about FTP. It just, can figure out Pete versus me versus you with all the stuff in there. Like I'm better at endurance than Pete is relative to FTP, but his anaerobic is much higher. And we don't have to like start working through this. It just looks at the history and knows. And then it gives you where from there you should go. And it's like it's a principle of what's it called? Overload. I forget what it's called. Progressive overload. Yes, exactly. So that, this is what you can do. Can you do more? Can you keep doing that? Which is really all this is to do is to make sure that you can do more watts for whatever durations you're doing, or either repeatable or sustained in your race, or, it's also a great measure for fitness to general health. The higher FTP you have, most likely the higher VO2 max you have at the same time. This gets debated everywhere. And every time we've introduced another way to test. So when we first launched, we had 20-minute test, and then we added the 8-minute test. And then we had the 2x20-minute test in there too. Then we had the ramp test. And then we had the AFTP, like the first version. And then we had this new version. And every single time everyone says, the old version's the better version. How could you do this? And yeah, seriously. So with this new one, because it's kind of like getting a new scale. So imagine you get a new scale and it's like a better scale, right? It's like certified to the gram. And it says your weight is either higher or lower than it is, but now it's going to be extremely consistent. Your weight didn't actually change. In our case, your fitness didn't change, but we believe this system is much more consistent and much more accurate to that benchmark workout to put you in the right progression levels. Now you might say, but I want my benchmark to be something else, XYZ. I want my bench work to be a 60-minute threshold all out. Well, then your first workouts are going to be like, you know, crazy long for sweet spot. And like, you can't, you're just
And
the amount of,
threshold.
exactly. And we're actually probably just going to give you higher wattages at that same one. And we'd actually give you just the same workouts, but your FTP would look high. Um, but it for us, it makes sense to put people at this part and go forward. You might have a different definition of what you want. And if you go on the forum, everybody's not, it's like talking about religion. It's rough. And
Yeah.
it's less about that and it's more about the what. So if you're this new when AFTP detection, you get it. We'll talk about this more in a second. But the best way to look at it to say, am I able to do this? Is to look at the progression in watts, because underneath is still the same system. So if you're doing, like, for somebody, they got a wattage increase, a pretty good big FTP increase, but they're doing 4x10s at 220. Now they're doing 4x12s at 221. But it's starting them at a different percent of progression, and maybe their threshold. That's probably a bad example, but maybe their sweet spot, like their thresholds, they were doing like 20-minute intervals, and now their sweet spot, they're doing 20-minute intervals, and their threshold, they're doing 10-minute intervals, but they're still doing like very similar wattages. And that's
Mhm.
the important part to understand. And that's that progressive overload. We're just stepping up in that power. I think we've all known that, right? You just do a little bit more each time. It's just like weight training. Like you do 5 more pounds or you couple more reps. That's more wattages or more duration or more repeats, right? That's what you want. And we all understand that intuitively.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So recapping on this one, it's the intent of FTP is to be functional, and what we're doing here is we're actually measuring performance. I think it's also worth stating when you said like the new scale is more accurate. The way that we're doing this isn't by saying how does this compare to a different testing format or different anything else. We're actually measuring, are the workouts well calibrated thereafter, and we're able to measure that because athletes tell us how hard it is, and our system knows how hard it should be. So it's really easy for us actually to make sure that this is accurate. And that's very different and unprecedented than what you're doing, which is just usually with other testing formats, you're just kind of guessing. So
Yeah.
we talk about accuracy. That's a key point.
And I say probably the better way for us to say this could be precision too than accuracy, because accuracy is like which number are we kind of searching for? And some people, even Coggin said, I think it's like 40 to 1 hours, the watts you could hold for 40 to 1 hour. That's a big freaking range.
Big
like,
range.
Yeah.
Those last 20 minutes, there's a lot that goes on.
But the idea is
40
that
to 60.
every time you step on that scale, it's going to be the same, and it's not going to have drift either way. There's like the same thing happens with power meters, right? You get a new power meter and maybe everything's 10 watts off, but if it doesn't have as much drift, if the slope is correct, so that when you get higher wattages, it doesn't go too high. If it's got, measures both legs accurately or precisely, that is, I guess, would be accurate in that one. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Okay.
So we do measure. I should have brought this data, but for how you perform after you change your FTP versus you change yourself, we're gonna have to test AFTP in 3.0 and 3.0. Or sorry, I say 3.0 because we had like a 2.0 system, but this new one that you're seeing is the most accurate. So the least amount of failures, the most amount of we don't get it too easy or don't have it too hard. It's the most of like where we want it after, across all zones, or after the test. So the detection, I guess. So that's also good to know.
We'll put that data on screen so that people can see that comparison. This is it, locking it in and making it more accurate. Okay, so when people sign up with TrainerRoad right now, and if they go into, or they've used TrainerRoad before and they have their FTP logged in there, when they go to sign up, it's a cool onboarding process, walks them through everything, and then it uses this new model to detect their FTP. In some cases, they might see their FTP dropping. Nate, you mentioned it's like getting a scale that is a scale that's going to be better for you, and then you move on and you use that scale. So how should we address this question if an athlete's like, why did my FTP go down? Maybe it's just the difference in measurement. What do you say?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's about 40% of people are going to get a reduction in FTP. I think it's like 20 is like about going to stay the same. 60, a little teeny bit up, and then like a very small portion over. Can we put that up too on the?
I'll put that up on screen too. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the reason is to get you at the right length of intervals for wherever you're at. So if you've been thinking we've always been short intervals for some people, you're going to get longer intervals. And then for other people, if you're at like a 8, 9, 10 progression level, especially at threshold, you're going to get a big FTP bump because, I don't know what your sweet spot were. If you do an hour at threshold, in order to like effectively get sweet spot time, it's crazy. And also if you don't, no, I'll just say that. So that's what's going to happen. And it doesn't mean anything in your fitness has changed. And this is something like we've seen a lot on the forum in the beta is someone goes, I can't do this. This isn't right. And they do the first workout. They're okay, that was right. And again, because the underlying system, you've all been on it for like a few months. You just don't know it. So surprise, it's been picking workouts for you. And that's how we get this data to show that it's better. And it's still going to be incrementally harder at the same step it's always been. So if it's been working for you, it's the same thing, except you just have a display number to you that's going to be that you can use as a benchmark. And we think, again, we're going to get you the right interval length that you can like trust every time, that it's going to be more precise and like you can tell it, detection to detection, which is really nice, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In situations where athletes are seeing this decrease, I feel like there's a few common scenarios that have come up where we've seen it happen. And for the athletes that are listening to this that don't use it, it's probably helpful to just cover what those are. So then that way they can get some context. Like, if athletes are saying like, why did it go down? It's probably because they're using an old FTP. Maybe they set it manually. Maybe they got it from some other source, whatever it is. And then now, so they're effectively comparing apples to oranges and wondering why they're different. And when you go through this process of onboarding, accept the new detected FTP, because then that will bring you to apples. And then it just makes it so that your training will get great. And if you're seeing that in the future with TrainerRoad AI, because it can predict your FTP within the next month, when you're seeing that in the future, if you're like, it's going down, you probably didn't accept that new FTP detection that was given to you in the beginning.
So that was during the beta. And actually we removed that feature. So if you don't accept the detection, we don't have the prediction, because the people were doing is that says, hey, my FTP is going to go down 15 watts. And they go, decline. And then they put some training plan calendar and it goes, hey, your FTP is going to go down 5 watts. And they go, what the heck, TrainerRoad? You're making me slower with this plan. When really it's it's the one that they put in before, where if you compare it to 3.0, they'd go up 10 watts. And so we've just disabled it. Another way to say it is, this plan's going to make me lose 5 pounds, but I say, I'm going to end up at 200 pounds after this diet. But I say my initial weight's 250, or I guess, no, 190. No, you're raising my weight, but it's not really, it's 205. Like again, this is just it's relatively accurate. And if it's precise so that it's the same every time. And if you compare it to an apple to an orange, it's not going to make sense.
That's right. Yeah. In situations where that's not the case, we've seen where some situations where like athletes have like taken whatever volume is recommended and they've dropped that volume down. So then they're just not getting enough training stimulus to improve.
Oh,
that's a common one there.
Yeah. So the reasons that I've seen the predictions go down, let's see, I wrote here, where did it go? Yep. So using old FTP, apples to apples, they've modified their volume down from what we recommend. But that's one too. Either you change your week around. If you stack like intense workouts, it will reduce that second day's workout in most cases, because you're not as fresh. You won't get as much out of it, right? So if you the example would be you stack all 3 hard ones in one time, and the rest is easy. Well, where you're at, that might not have as big as an FTP increase as if you had it spaced out, most likely all the time. I know some shift workers have to do that. Another one that we've seen is that an athlete might be in a block of races, like a cyclocross season. So say on the weekend, instead of doing interval rides, you're doing cyclocross races, but you're tapering before each one, and your volume and or intensity has significantly decreased. That might just keep you level with your prediction. And that's what we like to see, right? That's probably pretty good. And that probably means you're pretty fresh for those races. Another one we've seen are that older athletes. There's an athlete on the forum who was like 72, and he was getting a 2-watt gain or something. I forget what the exact number is, but his watt kg was high for a 72-year-old. It's probably one of the top 72-year-olds.
Real fit.
Yeah, you get to that's amazing. There gets to a point where maintaining is the win. I told John, imagine John keeping his FTP until he's 72. He would be the world
Cool.
champion, like a specimen of you already are, John. But you know what I mean? They'd study you forever because
Run out of bands.
it's just not possible. And usually this
Not enough
happens.
sleeves.
Yeah, exactly. Just the whole,
just the whole jersey's just rainbow bands. Yeah.
You'd run out of it goes slowly over time. And sometimes when you do get to a certain age, the gains are going to be minimal. Staying the same could be a win, but at least you can see now and like go in there. I saw another athlete answer today is they had a 1 watt increase, but it was over the last year, they've kind of been stuck. And at their age, I could adjust it to like 2 watt increase, but you put that over time and if they were consistent, it would be a significant gain for them. Another one is actually, no, that's for detection. I'm going to say this too. Another reason why this is the only reason I can think detection could be lower. And this is a unique case, but I might have seen this once on the forum, is you've been working, so you've been doing really well. And then you did a really big race, say Leadville, and you're really tired. You come back to training and you have like some chronic fatigue and you start failing workouts and then you get to detection. Well, the AI is going to put you lower than normal so that you can like come back and you might say, no. I just did Leadville where FTP is here. But now after that like fatigue and where you're at now, your functional threshold power, right? The functional, meaning what you can do right now is going to be lower and it's going to build you back up. And it's probably going to go back pretty quickly, depending on how well you recover. But that's another case just to think of is like, if you mark a whole bunch of you failed because of training fatigue, it's going to try to slow you down so that you can get faster later, rather than just keep being like, oh no, Jonathan did this 2 weeks ago. Yeah. He can just keep doing it. Even though he's failing a whole bunch of workouts in a row and saying he's tired, let's just keep doing it. We're going to lower you in that case. And I think that's the accurate one to do. And so yeah, just look at these that did you adjust the volume down? Did you do too much volume? The blocks, are you doing like too much taper, too much racing, switching things to like unstructured rides? That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be slower. How old you are, recent failures. The other one that's big is training approach. And training approach, remember, that's how difficult the workouts are. And balance is what we recommend. And I think that works best for most people. But I've seen like time and again on the forum where someone says, this plan isn't getting me to where I want to. They're at aggressive. I click it down to balance. They get a FTP increase.
Yep.
Right now, we don't do that. Like what we will do is when you do check volume or you look at plan, we're going to run all the different training approaches and so you can see the difference. Right now, we should get this out. We recommend balance, but if you change it, let's just look at the difference and see what it is and choose the best one for you. It really takes 25 seconds, 30 seconds to like check a few, maybe a minute. So it's not a huge, I think, burden, but look at that. And that's the idea that you do too much, it slows you down, which I think most of us have felt before, where I definitely have. I do get overzealous, do too much, and I actually end up doing less in the long term.
Yeah. There's another post recently in the forum that I saw where an athlete was like, I don't have confidence that this works because I just loaded up a week of like nonstop VO2 max workouts and I didn't get faster by the end of the week. And if anything, this is like a testament that it does indeed work. There's some interesting like things to outline here with that. Number one, training stress, just dosing yourself with hard work doesn't actually make you faster. It sets the groundwork for you to get faster, but you need to offset it with the right amount of rest in order for the adaptations to occur, and adaptations are what make you faster. So if you just dose yourself with a huge amount of work for a short period of time, you shouldn't expect to be faster during that time. Instead, it's going to take a little bit and you need to offset it with rest, and then you'll see it improve. And this system, because it's not just a simple TSS system or training volume system or intensity system, it's much more complex than that. It understands that. And that's why it's not just you're instantly faster because you've just dosed yourself with more. If that was the case, this would have been a really easy product to build. Just more is more. And that's like, and you're set. It's much more complex than that.
Were they doing they put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, VO2 max?
Yeah, I didn't see the actual calendar, but they mentioned it was just like a block of VO2 max work. Yeah.
Yeah. What helps us too, I'm going to make this, I got to put this as an official forum rule, but if you're asking questions or criticizing, take a picture of your calendar or your training, whatever you're talking about, put it on there and let people see, or even better, if your public calendar, like link to it, because then other people can help answer the question for you. And I think sometimes, 3 people say, hey, my FTP is not increasing on this. And they don't say why. And then like this thread of thinking is like, hey, this thing doesn't work. And then when we, hours later, or maybe a day later, we look at it and go, okay, you dropped your volume. One person was doing one hard workout a week and their FTP wasn't changing. That's great that maintains you, but that's not what we recommend. And that just wasn't enough. And that's a great insight to know. It could be we said all these things. We said the age, you change something. It might be an issue with the AI, but I just ask everyone to come with sometimes there's a vibe where this isn't what I expect. Therefore, some people are like in the beta, I'm canceling my membership. Like this doesn't work. I'm canceling membership. And instead of that kind of energy, come with like, this isn't what I expect. I'm curious as to why. Like, let's investigate, as maybe there's something that I'm not seeing here. And maybe let's use the intelligence of the forum. TrainerRoad employees can go in there and understand why this is. Another athlete that I saw, we both looked at this athlete. They were kind of stale within the last year and kind of stay in the same 8-watt range. And actually over the year, they maybe decreased 0.1 watts, like pretty much the same per month. We looked at their account and we couldn't find a rest week. Like they're, I think 58 and like every week they were doing at least one intense ride. And what they wanted a bigger FTP increase on the plan. And the AI is reacting to how you've been how you've been responding to training. So it's not going to just say, well, you have more volume, so therefore you get the same increase that I have or that somebody else has. And I have a crazy increase right now because I do respond really well to training because I'm really unfit, which won't happen forever and doesn't happen forever. And maybe look at that and say, well, I wonder what would happen maybe if I followed some principles where I did take a week off, or I took recovery weeks, especially with my age, and, maybe spaced out the intensity and went from there. And that's, that could be an insight that definitely the forum could catch, if you post that and you show a lot of it. But, that's, I think the main things I've seen the forum are, one is just arguing what the definition of FTP is, when really we should be arguing, are these the right watts for me? Should I be doing this length interval for this many watts, this many repeats? That's, I think, the appropriate way to argue, because, FTP is just to get to that. And then the question of, I view that this plan should make me faster than what it is. Therefore, TrainerRoad, you're bad. Like the AI is bad. And again, just come with curiosity and we'll all learn. And I swear we're looking at it and we're going to, I spend half the day like clicking through accounts and then we go, oh, this is the reason why. And this is another reason why we need an AI coach, little LLM to kind of do these things for us that can say, hey, I switched your training approach to balance and, it increases it. So do a little bit less, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or last week was a recovery week and you were supposed to do 3 hours, 4 hours, but you ended up doing 9. That's why your next workout's not going to be where it should be.
Yeah.
So that has to be the most common thing that I've seen over the last 2-3 years of looking at people's training calendars is recovery weeks just not being expected. Regular listeners to the podcast are probably rolling their eyes or taking a drink right now because it's so common.
Or eat your carbs. The thing, like a sign that I think too, the AI thinks you need to rest more is when you see a decrease in levels week over week. That's like a telltale sign that you're doing too much. Is that like on Tuesday it has you, I'm thinking of an athlete, a sweet spot of 5.5, and the next week it has you at a 4.4, and you have like recovery before it. It's thinking that it's only doing that because it thinks you're too tired. And what we don't have right now, and so Plan Builder takes what we know about training over the last, 14 years we've been doing this or something, more than that, 16 years, principles.
And everybody,
studies,
and all the science and principles before us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we create your plans with that, and we do the distribution. But the AI isn't looking for what's the appropriate week distribution or the appropriate volume for you. It responds to it, and it does like make small adjustments, but it doesn't say, John, your perfect volume is 8.2 with these, this many on this day and this workout split. We've run simulations internally, and I swear I did it for like a few of us. The amount of, it gets to be this exponential thing where it's like 90,000 simulations to run to try to figure out the best one. We need another AI way to do that, to figure it out. And that's that's going to be a harder problem than it sounds to do. But the nice part is you can run little simulations yourself. And again, I've seen it always increase people's FTPs, unless it's one of those cases where they changed it, they changed the volume, or they're maintaining because they're older. Or that's the training approach, like play with that. But I haven't seen it but not saying that it could, but like, again, take a little bit of like a few minutes and adjust it a little bit to see what you like and what's good for you.
Yeah. We've developed TrainerRoad AI, really advanced model to give you the right workouts and build your plan and adjust things as it goes. And then our training plan builder, as of now, as of recording this podcast, is one that's based on everything that the training community knows about periodization and everything else like that. Feel free to tweak and adjust around with your plan if you don't see what you expect. And then you can see how it'll adjust things from there. But yeah.
And I say that too, because what I would probably want listening to this is says, well, if you see somebody's levels go down week over week, you should then alert them, tell them to take rest. And I totally agree. We have so many things going on, but one of them is like, we're predicting like just fatigue and to be able to show that to like where your fatigue level is to the athlete or change it. But again, it's steps, right? This has been almost a year now working as a full company, where the actual AI was 3.5 years. We could keep going for 4 or 5 more years without releasing anything, but this is a big enough increase that it really, like, I can't wait for everyone to see it. It is really cool, and I think it's worth a ton of value, but there's more value to come.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's also a point with the last one on the FTP side of things, Nate, where some athletes might do a workout and suddenly they go, whoa, it changed more than I thought. Mm-hmm. In your mind, you might think that it's just going to be small incremental changes. How would you answer that one? Why did my FTP change after this workout?
Yeah, the predicted FTP.
Predicted one, forgive me. Yes. Mm-hmm.
A lot of it has to do with how far away it is from the prediction. And there's like a butterfly effect, or using the stock market too, of the changes you make or your retirement account today, like they compound over time. And if you maybe struggle with some early workouts, it just like that curve just gets like down adjusted a little bit. You can adjust it back. Like just because you have one bad one and it brings you down 2 watts, if you have some good ones, it can bring you back 2 watts even more in the future. Like it zeroes in. So it's not just like stuck down the whole time. But if you, for instance, I always like the weight training things. If we're getting John to a plan to bench press 250 and we start him at 150 for 8 reps and he can only do 3 of them, well, that's just like curved down our prediction of the 200, right? Like the same plan doesn't get you there in the same time. Maybe you get there for longer, but that's a data point. And you say, well, that was just a bad one. Well, then the next time he does do 150 for 12, well, now he's jumped back, right? And then it's going to look at that and say, oh, okay, that was just a bad workout. We're going to move forward. And, the cycling training is much more complex than weight training because all the different like dimensions there are to it. But that's the kind of the example that I like to do. So I wouldn't fret about it. It's, if you don't like to see it, like some people say, I really hate to see this as people go, this isn't the increase or what I want. So it's unmotivating. And it's, to me, like, that's tough for me to hear because what's more motivating is like getting there, doing all that stuff and then seeing the decrease that you don't know about, or being able to make the change right now in order to not do it. It's kind of like, I don't know if this is an extreme example. Okay. I'm going to get flack for this, but if I knew like, hey, in 2035, I'm going to get lung cancer from smoking. I know that day it's going to happen. That's unmotivating, but I can make a change in my life. It is, but I can make a change where that doesn't happen. Yes. And
totally.
So the power
Wouldn't
is
you want to know?
Yeah. The power is in your pan now to change something, to do it. And part of it too is the mind shift. Is if you are, the 72-year-old athlete who is, fantastic walk kg, staying the same or a little increase, that is winning. So you might say, but I want a 5-watt increase. I see all these guys in their 30s, they're getting 10-watt increases per month. One, they're not at the, like, relative to their peak watt kg for their age group. You might be at that top of your genetic potential, where someone else has a lot of room to grow. And that's just not a good comparison system to it. I think I really want to do, because this system is more precise and we can compare against everyone, is I want to, like, predict everyone's power every day through their career. And then rank people if they want to be ranked in terms of age and watt kg. And I think some of these athletes too, who stay at the same, if you're older and you stay at the same watt kg over a year, but you see your rank climb up, right? And wouldn't that be cool? Like, I think that'd be cool in the prediction.
It'd be super motivating.
Yeah, in the prediction too.
It's like the rest are falling around you, but you're just staying there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I would like to see that. I don't know if we'd put it in we probably wouldn't put it in the prediction. Maybe. That could be it. That'd be
ask
too
people
hard.
if how they feel about it too. If you let us know in the YouTube comments how you feel about that one.
And I think some people that you don't want to be ranked, but other people you do. And I think we would, if you don't want to be ranked, you don't see yourself in the leaderboards. And also, if you don't want your prediction, if you do feel unmotivated by it, just turn the prediction off. We're still getting great workouts. You'd be surprised. You don't want to know your presents before Christmas. That's cool. You can figure out what it is.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Yeah.
Good explanation. Okay, let's off of FTP. How should athletes use progression levels and workout levels now? Progression levels are evidence of what you've done recently as an athlete. You can see those on your career. Yeah. Workout levels would be like a relative ranking system with like workouts in a specific zone and profile, so you can understand maybe forward-looking some relative difficulty, although AI predicted difficulty is much better for that for you individually. Those are what those two things are. So how should people use these now, since AI is really just picking them and giving you that predicted difficulty?
Yeah, and two, instead of calling them progression levels, I think we call it athlete levels now. We're going to call it progression levels for a long time, but that's what it says in the career. And I use them interchangeably, and I shouldn't. But I've said this before, but the AI doesn't see those levels. Those are like human designed algorithmic ones that we've placed on top of it. It is a good way to see, like, am I progressing? Sometimes you'll see very close levels kind of be, either they're at the same difficulty, the levels are different. And that's just the nature of, how close are you to your threshold, where you think it doesn't know threshold, but it, like, can see that where the wattages you can't hold anymore for a long time, where it, like, tapers off. So in effect it does, and that's a whole curve. It all gets very complicated. And maybe one is over unders and one is flat, is like at threshold, or like intervals. And you might be better at over unders than another person. And like when we did the algorithm, we did like an average. So you might be outside of the average, and that's why there's a little difference in there. Again, another reason why we needed to do this with AI. But the way to do it is it is a good way to see progress moving forward, and you will see progress, and it does then relate to what your predicted FTP is. The other one is, some people said, I really use this old FTP number for pacing, and this new number is different. So, like, how can I pace? I will look at that old FTP number. It's a relationship between that and your level. Because again, a level 2 versus level 6 versus level 10 is a completely different rider inside of there. So whatever, like, relationship you used to like, where you said, before this race, I was a threshold 5, and I use that number to pace this, 40K or something, or whatever this hill climb is. You can still use that relationship to know that it is. And you can even, like, change your FTP if you wanted to, and put like a threshold on your calendar, keep changing it down until that thing says 5. And you can use that for pacing. I don't want to talk about other future features, but that's probably how I would use the levels, but I wouldn't sweat about them too much. Really to show overall progress is that the benchmark workouts that we show then to predict your FTP. But I still like them, and they're still fun. And I would really, the other thing I guess I will talk about future features. What I really want to do is have, like, absolute levels. So instead of at a 200 FTP, I'm a level 5. At threshold, I'm a level 526 threshold. And then we can change your FTP and say, now you're live 528. And kind of make that, like, where you can compare at different FTPs how that threshold number. So you can see when you do have a big increase, actually the number step of how difficult that is very small.
Yeah. Can I share personally how I view progression or athlete levels and workout levels now that I have used this for over a year with consistent training?
Please do.
I don't I don't pay attention to them. Like, I just haven't had to. I mean, same honestly goes for my FTP, Nate. Like, I used to use that as like the be all end all of my training and my proxy. And I think that the main reason for that is because sometimes with training before, whether it was something way back when we had dynamic plans or even before that, and long before that, but got into this habit of like, you didn't know if your workout would be perfect for you. And frankly, I think we counted it up the other day, all but 3 workouts. And this is me beta testing different iterations of the model and being a guinea pig. And all but 3 workouts in the past year have been spot on with what it predicted it would be. So my workouts just feel magically fine. So I kind of don't care about the other stuff. I'm just like, this is great. Like, I just carry on. But the athlete levels are the only ones where I look at that and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I've done recently. For pacing and for me personally, I still find that the FTP that I have is really good for pacing. So I just want to make sure that people don't disqualify that from the get-go. It might be really, really good for you. It's better for me than if I was to go do a 2x20, 1x60, 2x8, whatever it might be. So
yeah, the nice thing now that it is more precise, like whatever you figure out with this new system that you like you'll be able to then like count on that going forward, which is really cool.
yeah, and you'll also like with your training when your workouts are really great, you'll also know what it feels like. And I think that's misunderstood or undervalued when you're talking about training and riding at an effort. I know there were situations where Nate, you and I were doing races, whether it was a time trial or anything else, and we weren't always thinking about things of like, how should I pace that effort? Well, my FTP is this, so I need to hold that. Instead, it was like, I know that in my recent training, I felt this,
Oh, yeah.
and this is what I can hold for that sort of effort. Like,
For
and
sure.
so you won't even have to kind of worry about that. It's just you're going to get such good workouts that it takes care of itself. This is an interesting question because the question is now, how important are post-workout surveys now with this new AI model? And surprisingly, in some cases, we've seen athletes that have very few survey responses logged, and I'm really impressed how good it still does with it. But
Yeah.
the principle stands: the more surveys you add, the better, more locked in it gets on you.
Yeah, we saw some bloggers with 0. And especially as you come to TrainerRoad, you won't have any, like if you've never used this before, you just have outside rides, and we have your heart rate and your wattage. And what, if anything, that might get you slightly lower to start, which is much better than slightly higher, but then we'll respond to you and catch up. And I think, and most people too would rather have like a gradual come into training than like, let's slam you and see how hard you can go. That's kind of what the AI favors in that case, but they are important, and they're not so important where you're like, oh my gosh, it's hard and very hard. I don't know. I can't, like, I'm fretting. What should I do? It's more of like, if, man, I just went all out, I'm going to mark that easy. Like that's the, where I'm going to make this really like,
Yeah.
easy workout and say, oh, that was very hard. Where you just, it's like kind of the extremes. It's interesting too, as we saw another person, and all they had on their account pretty much was easies, a couple moderates, and failures. And they were a blogger and they were testing things. So like, the failures were not things that we prescribed, but they were doing like tests of power meters and stuff. You could probably guess what it is. And the system though was able to like, I didn't even know this was going to happen, but it was predicting moderate workouts. So like that this athlete would respond moderate, but also it was at the right level for them to train. And even because they've always responded with moderate, it wasn't like saying, it wasn't looking at everybody's stuff and saying, well, these should be very hard. And like the system says, you're not going to say very hard because you never say very hard. Like you're either going to fail or you're going to be moderate. But like of all these workouts, this is the right moderate for you. And based on the wattage that we saw and what they've recently been doing, it made a lot of sense for them to be at that wattage.
Yeah.
I really want to see what happens inside of there. And I suggested too, this is cool, is you can, if you turn up your workout, and you mark it as, I told them to turn up the workout and see what the level of wattages would be hard so they could answer hard. And I just want to see what the AI does. And so if you do change your workout, you do more, a little, like answer what you actually did. And the system will look at what you actually did and not just what was prescribed and adjust from there.
That's right.
So it's
It's
important, but
super
don't fret about the two, like the little in between of what does this feel like, and that's fine.
very commonly athletes over obsess over what is the exact right thing to answer, and that's why we inherent and intentionally, forgive me, phrase this so simply. How did the workout feel? Like, it's just, that's it. Like, it's not, don't overthink it, don't go crazy with it. And I think this is a great situation that we just shared there, where even an athlete that doesn't have a whole lot of data, the system learns and understands you and can still give you the right workout. So don't fret if you're hemming and hawing between two adjacent ones, but just answer honestly. Don't like tell the system. And I've seen some people too say like, I'm just going to say everything is easy. So then that way it ramps me way up. And number one, there might be some initial behavior like that, but it might not actually ramp you up too much. It might still protect you from yourself there
Yeah,
to a certain degree. It'd
it's
be
looking at
interesting to see.
it's looking at heart rate too, and there will definitely be a time where you're going to like not be able to do it, and then it's going to really then
Yeah.
probably lock in after that. Um, Another thing that I think could be confusing is, let's say there's two different ways. Or actually, no, I'll just do one. Let's say you did 2x20 at threshold, hard, right? Hard, very hard workout, and then you ride for 2 hours at a very easy pace. Well, I would not call that workout like easy. Like, I'm going to do an easy workout because I'm doing 2x20 and then 2 hours at easy, because at the end you might feel like this was easy, but think of like the overall workout, like that was a hard workout, a very hard workout, not just the, again, too, if you did one interval of one anaerobic work interval and then you rode for 2 hours easy, I wouldn't call that a very hard workout either, right? That's probably is an easier, easy
Hmm.
workout for you, because I think you can intuitively know this, but just don't get caught up of like, how am I feeling during my cool down versus how hard that workout was.
Yeah, yeah. At minute 2, it was easy. At minute 46, yeah, yeah. Don't
Yeah.
worry about that.
You
Just
can
rate
think
it at the
back. You
end.
guys
Yeah,
know, like, just think of how
yeah.
you're breathing.
Yes,
To like we know if it was hard or not.
that's right. Yeah. Okay. Next one. Can the system tell the difference between finishing a workout and barely surviving it?
Sure can. It's
Hmm.
there. One, it sees your heart rate too, but it is the way that your like wattage response. If you did the exact same wattage and you had no heart rate, it does know what the predicted difficulty was, and so that will be one thing, because if you were doing 100-watt intervals versus 300-watt intervals and your FTP was like 300, obviously it's can tell the difference, that doesn't think you're just surviving the 100-watt intervals, right? Because that's going to be easy if
Hmm.
you had no response at all. Um, but to give it more information, if you were just barely surviving it and you did it exactly the same and you weren't wearing heart rate, even if you had a heart rate, well, there's one that's saying this is a maximum effort, which I would say that if it was barely surviving, maximum effort, maybe very hard.
Hmm.
Um, Or you could say this was just hard, like, or moderate. That's a great way for it to tell. And that's also why we have our PP surveys, because just in that exact case where you can't tell from the power, you can't tell from the heart rate. Um, and we need to know, like it helps to know
Hmm.
if you were going maximum effort or not. And that's also why afterwards, if that happens, we have a survey and it answers it like, this is going to kind of lead into the future stuff, but was this due to workout intensity, like training fatigue, or did you like not sleep well? Were you getting sick?
Hmm.
Those are called like transient failures, where if you're getting sick or you just like, I didn't sleep well tonight, like that's the system's gonna have a different response to that than if you said, it was too hard for intensity. So try to be as honest as you
Hmm.
can with those. Um, yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
Great. Next one. Why are my workouts changing? It's kind of the intent, but it's worth stating that TrainerRoad doesn't have like, when you get a training plan built and you're building it for July 4th, our system doesn't have like a normal online training system. It doesn't have a set progression of workouts that you follow until then. So our system actually doesn't know what your workout will be on July 3rd right now, leading up to the end of your training plan, because it could predict what is most likely. And as you get closer to that, that prediction is going to get more and more accurate. But it's really like building it live as it
Yeah.
goes. It isn't just a template and adapting it. It's building it live.
Um, yeah. So as you like, every time that everything isn't exactly as what's planned, and even what your heart rate could be doing this too, if you have the wattages and the surveys and everything exactly the time, it responds to that and adjusts it. And I have seen some people, they go, I don't like it. I don't want it to change. Um, I, I mean, you could start at the beginning of the month and then just pin every ride, but it's like, of course you want, I mean, I don't understand that one, or if I don't want it to change. I could see like maybe it gets overwhelming to see the little things like update or something like that. Um, if that's the case, I mean, I would just use the app and not even look at it, just do your workouts. Um,
Yeah.
but that's the whole benefit, I think, is that if it's this is exactly it's just like having a coach where I did this ride and the coach was like, okay, I looked at this ride. This is what tomorrow's actually, I'm going to adjust tomorrow's workout. You're doing 2 less watts, on this way, but then this day is going to be a little bit more. And I've updated your plan, hang up.
Yeah.
And I think that's what,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we're trying to go for. And that's the benefit. So that's why it's changing, because it's not what the AI originally predicted would happen. So it's then responding to that and doing a new prediction for then to then do stuff. And the more you use it, the more accurate it's going to get too, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Question, why can't I see my workouts outside the AI training simulation window on my calendar?
Yeah, part of it is, so that was a conscious decision, is we just tried to decide of how long the simulation window should be. And we had it be 2 weeks at first, because at first the system was slow. Like some of these predictions would take, I don't know, a minute per workout. Like
Yeah.
now it's like averaging a second and a half, which is good. If you have a really big career, it might take a little bit longer. But we thought a month was nice because you could see your next prediction. And that's like you're not getting overwhelmed of like, there's the chaining of like what happens and what if 2-3 months in the future gets kind of crazy. Also the server costs. This is like, it's a lot of money. And, I think it's going to be close to $1 million or something like that of like just this feature. And maybe not, hopefully not, we can lower it. But I think when it goes on full bore, because we only have 2,000 people on it right now. But everyone's getting some stuff. It depends on how much everyone uses it. We'll see. Doing it more in the future is more
Save us
of that.
pennies.
Yeah. Please use it all you want though. Doing more is actually like every time would be even, could be twice that then to do a longer thing. I don't think we'll do this, but I thought for a second, like maybe we will have like a pro or something where you can say, hey, I want to spend $5 extra a month, and that's going to take I can do 2 months or 3 months or something like that to see it. But and we would chain your prediction and you could see then 3 months out what would happen. And I personally would love that, but I think other people wouldn't love that. I think it's very the data scientist person. And I don't think we have any plans for that right now. I still want to just improve the efficiency, and there's a bunch of features that some I mentioned here that add on top of what we have right now rather than go out further in the future.
Yep. Literally, you will see in the future, outside of that 4-week-ish window that you have for the AI training simulation, beyond that, you'll see that on Tuesdays, you're going to be doing a sweet spot 1-hour workout. And on Thursdays, you're going to be doing a 1-hour threshold workout. You'll see like the actual zone that you'll be in, the duration, and even like the profile of it, but you won't see the exact workouts. So you'll get an indication, and then it just gets more and more specific the closer you get. What does the predicted difficulty mean, and how should I use it? That's the thing that when you look at a workout in TrainerRoad, you can see how the AI predicts how difficult it will be for you, and it graphs it for the likelihood of each of those scenarios being the outcome.
I'm thinking back, I think it's going to be less than $1 million, but it's going to be hundreds of thousands. I'm just, I was thinking of a different server cost that's increased, but anyways, I didn't want to make sure I hate to give people any wrong information, but it's a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So the predicted difficulty is what we predict your outcome will be for choosing the RPE. And what's really interesting is like for most people, it's very similar where like the harder workouts are going to be very hard. But for this other person that we said, they only answered moderates. It predicted they're going to answer moderate, but it still gave them a workout that was
So
hard
cool.
because of some other stuff that we do is that it thinks of all these workouts are going to be moderate, but the one that we want to do is like at the very end of moderate, right? And that was so cool to understand. Like at first I thought it was a bug, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah, we did.
Like, and then we looked at
We're
it.
We're still learning from this.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a key point to make. Yeah.
It was giving them the right wattage, which is another reason where like you say, if, I've always, I've always answered these surveys this some way because that makes sense in my head. Just keep doing that because it'll learn from you and figure out the right response. Um,
Yep.
so it you can look at it and it does, especially relative to other rides. You can see which ones are easier and harder. Relative to other rides, especially works well. Um, there is if you change training approach, you'll see they get easier. Uh,
Mhm.
Another one is that if you see, you'll start to learn that like maybe we some rides we aim right in the middle of hard and very hard. And once you do one of those and you go, oh, that was that was solid, but not like a killer, you start to trust it and you start to not dread your workouts because you're like, oh yeah, that I can do that. I
Yes.
can do that. I can do that. And then if you are feeling like a little bit bad that day or yeah, not up to it, you can use the easier ride and you can go down to something that is you see that it drop maybe a little bit into moderate and then hard and moderate. And then you know in your head, like, yeah, I can do that. That is a lot easier. And it's just, it adds a whole bunch of certainty to it. And like, John, this
Mhm.
is a big thing for you is you feel confident, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, like, I just don't dread my workouts, and I just know it. To answer this one literally again, I kind of actually don't look at the AI predicted difficulty these days. I just my workout's there, it shows up on my bike computer, or it shows up in Zwift, and it's just always right, and that is what it is. But it is helpful for some athletes because it gives them a clear indication of what to expect. I just have this expectation now that everything feels magical, and I live in this wonderful world of training bliss. So it's pretty great. What does the failure percentage actually represent? Because if you look, like it'll say easy,
Mhm,
moderate, and it'll go hard, very hard, max effort, and then at the bottom there'll be one that says failure.
mhm.
So that one, what does that mean, Nate?
One more thing on predicted difficulty too is that also this relates to this one is that on some workouts it'll say not recommended or like too intense. Um, those That's a great way to see is like, don't do those yet. If you think
Mhm.
you can do it and like try to prove the AI wrong. But they get to be really hard. And what that does is the predicted difficulty is it predicts what the likelihood of that you'll fail for intensity or training fatigue. We're not predicting for
Mhm.
sickness or nutrition
Mechanical
or something like that.
issues or
Yeah, yeah, mechanical. That's definitely out. We might actually that might be changing here soon because what we've noticed is the harder their overall difficulty, the more likely is you didn't sleep well the night before. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
they're related, but it kind of,
I see what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that maybe there's a false attribution in there, or it is just the harder workouts do require you to sleep more. So like there's like more of a
Mhm.
line there. And maybe for some people who have sleep issues, this is what I'm thinking in my head is that if you do have these transient issues more often, maybe the AI will then pull you back a little bit and not keep you to a point where sleep is an issue. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
we have kids, you sleep less. And if you've been saying, hey, I'm going to cancel or I haven't finished because of sleep. Well, then we shouldn't put you at that level where an hour or two less of sleep is going to get you over that phase where you can't finish your workout. That's what I think is going to
That's right.
happen. And we're going to experiment with that and work on it. And then if we update that, we'll let you know. So that is what that does. And, you might think that, it goes easy to moderate, hard, very hard, all out, like maximum effort and failure. But it's like this equal kind of thing where as you get harder, like the bars just shift equally. But it's not the case. Actually hitting that maximum effort, it's like a razor's edge. It's hard to actually get someone to do that because, think about how big a zone is for you to be easy. It's probably 60% of your FTP down to 0 watts, right? That's probably a
Mhm.
huge thing. The maximum effort is sometimes 5 different watts, 3 different watts, the duration of the interval like a 30 seconds, the amount of rest 10 seconds, and it's like a teetering point between making that a failure or very hard. Like that maximum is just right there, so you're probably not going to
Mhm.
see that maximum effort be very high in general. um, Depending on how you've responded in surveys, if you often say maximum effort, then it's probably going to say you're going to more likely to say that maximum effort. But that it represents that chance of failure. And what we've done in our testing is like that chance of failure. There's also, there's also This is probably giving away too much of the system. But I will, because it can be confusing. Sometimes you will,
Okay.
because the model is uncertain, we have less data. You might have a workout where it's predicting a moderate outcome, but also a high failure rate. And this is basically, there's like a entropy, but the model is less certain about what's going to happen. And it's like, it could go either way. Like we're not sure. And we then guard against that to put you more towards an easier workout so that you're not having that kind of like either or. And as you do more workouts, it's going to get more certain, and it's going to like kind of the prediction is going to narrow down and be more like a tall tower rather than like a flat building.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's what's important there. And that's why you might see that of like, oh, another reason too is this is another one I thought was a bug, but it's very interesting. We had a TrainerRoad employee. He was doing easy rides, but his failure rate was like pretty high in some of these failure rides. And what was happening is, and this is a thing we haven't released, but it is factored in your failure rate, but there isn't a source you can see it independently, is that his training fatigue was ranking really high. And so even though this ride is easy, like any ride might be easy for you, but you just failed because of training fatigue, right? You're just tired. I think
Hmm.
we've all done that. You
Hmm.
start and like, it's not because of the intensity of the workout, but it could go either way where you just slept a little bit better, you ate a little bit more, you could do it. And I think that was really interesting too, is to be able to see that that's what could be happening if you see you see a high failure rate and also an easier workout, and you have data recently, especially if you've been failing recently because of training fatigue. It could be at a higher predicted rate, but also you don't have to have any training fatigue failure in order to predict the training fatigue. It just looks at everyone who's ever done workouts and failed for training fatigue of this is the pattern that we're seeing that could happen.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool. I think there's probably some kind of feature in that, but again, there's so much to learn and so much to explore, and we have to prioritize all these things and yeah, get them
that's
out.
right. Let's run through the last few ones pretty quick. How long does it take for the system to feel dialed in to me as an athlete? That one's variable, right? Kind of hard to answer for each person, but it's certainly quicker than it ever has been before.
I
That's
mean,
for sure.
I've according to our data, very quickly. I think it's over maybe I want to say 90%, but I don't know how much data is on each person's account. Um, very quickly. Like if you have
Yes.
no data, you do a ramp test, it's still going to like use that data, then dial you in. You're going to be great then. If you don't, I think the cases that might have problems with is, I guess, no data or I think even only easy rides. It's still going to like ramp you in pretty fast. I'm not sure how to answer that really well, but I haven't seen it take like a long time with anyone. And with me, the
Yeah.
cool part is like, I'll take, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months off, and it still comes back and it nails me at the right workout, which is pretty cool. Um,
Yeah, you're a
yeah,
complicated case because you had this really high level of performance in the past, haven't trained a lot recently. So you'd think that it would be really tricky and maybe even like overly aggressive on like starting you back in too high, but it doesn't.
yep.
It does quite well with it. So, why did my day? This is about some yellow and red days. So those are the days when you should go a little bit easier, maybe do an endurance ride instead of a hard ride, or just a full rest day if it's a red day. So these questions says, why did my day turn yellow or red after a Zwift or an outdoor ride? It's probably from athletes that don't understand that like it's looking at everything that you're doing, and it's using all that info to be able to adjust your upcoming workouts.
Well, that just means that we like you've done a big effort, and we think that you need to either reduce intensity on the yellow day or rest on a red day in order to prevent long-term future fatigue. Um, not You might still be able to do a work on that day, so that's why it turned that color on
Mhm.
that's why it's happening.
Yep, exactly. And then I think that athletes probably, I've seen this question, is it bad if I train on a yellow or a red day? No, it's no, if you train on a red day, it's probably not advisable, but these yellow and red days happen. That's part of training. Yellow days are going to be more frequent than red days, so they should be at least. So it's not like a sign that things are off the rails. If you get a yellow day that pops up on your calendar, if anything, it's pretty normal for
I
some athletes.
Yeah, for like if you have yellow days in your calendar, it's probably a sign that you're ramping volume. And like that's for a lot of people, that's great. And from what you've been doing, you've been ramping. I mean, it is a sign that that's happening. And on those yellow days, yes, the endurance rides, we think that's great. If you do an intense ride on that, just know you're going to have a consequence later. Like on the red days too, a great example is a stage race. Like you go red in a stage race as you should. Still train through it. Just know you're going to have more recovery later. And if you go red and you have a really fun ride or someone's in town and you want to do a ride with them, you go ahead. Just know later on, you're going to have to rest some more. And it's going to take that into account and dial you back. And you might also want to just take a little extra rest yourself in order to prevent long-term fatigue. But in general, just do what it says. And I think that's the best way forward.
That's the cool part now, is that like you can like go off script, so to speak, and it's going to still work to get you on track. It's not like most training plans that you take where if you go off script, you have no clue how to re-enter and get back into things. It's designed to take care of that for you. So I still, as a coach, recommend that you stay on script, please. Your gains will thank you, or you'll thank your gains for it. So, okay, let's run into these last ones here. How should I use alternates in this new system? And maybe within that, we can talk about like when somebody should pick something that's you already covered. If you're feeling tired, you might want to pick an easier alternate or something like that. But any other thoughts on alternates in general, Nate, that people could have here on how to use it?
When you look at it, I would just I think the alternates are great as if you're like, the structure of this workout I don't like so much, and I feel more motivated to do one of these other workout structures than alternates. The alternates are all kind of the same difficulty. Pick any one of those. So that's time where you could just say, this sounds better to me. I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. Nice and easy. Okay, last one. How should I handle illness or missed days with TrainerRoad AI?
Yeah. I mean, if you miss a day, just it updates and keep going forward. And then with illness, don't train until you're well again. And it would be nice to mark on your calendar that you were sick. The AI doesn't look at those. We don't have enough, in order for that, like to pick up signals like that, it has to be like, we got to have a significant constant signal. And it's good for your own self to know that you were sick, but the AI would have to know how sick you are. It would have to have everyone's sickness be consistent. And the level of sickness is so different that we haven't even tried it. I just don't think it's going to work to have just knowing the amount of sick things we have in our calendar and our database, that it would improve the outcome.
Yeah, the more info you log on your calendar, the more it could potentially help things in the future. So it's definitely not a bad thing to log them and add them in. But I've also seen other athletes that like use a sickness annotation every morning to log how they feel or something. So we probably have some crazy bad data in there. So it might be a little tricky. But the cool part is the crux of this question, illness or missed days with TrainerRoad AI, it adjusts better than any other system that I've seen or that I've used, where it's if you miss a workout, it's not a simple system where it's like, okay, you missed workout 4 out of 15 in this block of training. So as a result, we're going to make sure that your next workout is workout 4 instead of workout 5. It's not even close to that simple. It's much more complex, where it's looking at it and it's thinking like, okay, this athlete's taking this many days off. As a result of missing that many days, here's actually how this will affect this athlete's ability to perform. It's very cool. It's a lot smoother transitions when you come back to training after time off. It's pretty neat. Speaking as a father who is sick often from the kiddos. So it's pretty helpful. Nate, we just covered a lot. Thanks for doing this and for giving the athletes some insight into kind of like the behind the scenes cool insight into how all of this works. If you want to use TrainerRoad AI, like the charts that we showed earlier, statistically, it's the best way to get faster that we've ever designed. And compared to athletes that are picking their own workouts or have somebody like a coach picking their workouts in TrainerRoad for them, the step change is even higher in terms of how it improves your ability to get faster. Try it out. When I say it's magic, I'm genuinely saying that. It feels that way when you train. It's amazing. It makes you faster. Go check it out at trainerroad.com. We'll talk to you all next week. Thanks, Sam.
And two more. People on YouTube, all the things I mentioned, like if you have things that I said that really resonate, like please say, and then if you have any other ideas that you want to say, put them on YouTube. We do read them and it does help us direct. There's a few things I really want to do right afterwards, prioritize those, but yeah, let us know.
Great. Thanks, Nate. Talk to you all next time.
Bye-bye.